Good evening, Ramadoji, distinguished members who have gathered here. Normally, I'm very uncomfortable when I have some papers in my hand. But since this is a very important gathering, and I believe since the first conference India Foundation organized in Jaipur 4 years back, it has come a long way. And I'm told that the participation is very encouraging. People who matter in the subject which we are battling in the world against terrorism. The minds are meeting here. I'm very happy to be part of it. And we look forward for more cooperation in the future also. When we talk about terrorism, you can hear so many things. People give different kind of definition. In different countries, people tend to perceive terrorism from their own interest, from their own angle. But we in India, the government of India is very clear. Terrorism is terrorism. There's nothing called bad terrorism. There's nothing called good terrorism. And when we battle against this menace, there is no scope for any kind of soft approach. It's very encouraging to see over the last few years I have personally interacted with various members of the government. I had opportunities to deal in bilateral forums and multilateral forums. I had attended various events also. And in one of the events in Bali, in Indonesia, there was a ministerial conference for counter-terrorism. And I was very encouraged to see the Islamic nations. They're taking a very lead role on the subject. It's very encouraging because people tend to give different kind of angle because of the things which is prevalent in the society. But there, I was very categorical in my statement that when we talk about combating terrorism, it is no more a question of one country to deal with the subject. It is a global effort because terrorism is a threat to humanity itself. But here we have one country in our neighborhood who tend to give different colors to terrorism itself. Most unfortunate is when they try to justify the terrorists as freedom fighters. As long as this kind of things are visible, we will always grapple with how to fight the menace of terrorism. From India's point of view, we are very clear. You all are very well aware that when India was battling against the terrorism, because India is one of the most acute victim of terrorism, some of the countries, including many countries in the West, they used to perceive terrorism from their own point of view. And much later, after 9/11, you all know, the whole concept of terrorism for the Western world also changed. Because it's no more confined to any border, it's not confined to any region, it's not confined to any country. With the advent of internet, things have changed. One visual impact can change the whole scenario. There was a time it would have taken decades to reach out to some section of people in one corner of the world. Today, one photograph from Iraq can influence a pocket in India. One forged document or a forged kind of picture to raise the emotion of the people can create enormous negativity in the minds of the youth. So things have changed. Just now I was addressing the International Conference of the Chiefs of Police. I was telling them there also, the nature of the threat which we are facing today is almost identical. There was a time the threat in England is totally different from the threat we face in India. The threat in Indonesia was different from what was in United States of America. Today it's same internet, same kind of mechanism they use. So to combat terrorism, the global community, we will have to come together. Otherwise, in piecemeal, in own country specific approach, is not going to succeed. Financing. Financing of terror activities is the lifeline. It's good that we have laws in India, and you all are aware that in India, any proceeds of any of the terror acts, anything to do with terrorism, anything which promotes the act of terrorism is taken very seriously, and the provisions are being made proportionate to what should be done. So, Government of India, talking from the legislative point of view, legal point of view, and government's intention, all are converging. There's no space or scope for any relaxation. It's very, very clear. And in our government's time, we have been very clear from the day one, there is zero tolerance against terrorism. And that is very, very clear. But sometimes things dilute. In India itself, in our current society, sometimes we see how people dilute the whole effort. And it's very dangerous as well as it's very negative. Some people even go to the extent of diluting the terrorist with human rights openly, and they take the benefit of the kind of democracy which we have. If I talk about national security, somebody will talk about human rights. Then if I say if there is security, there will be human rights. But when it comes to national security, it should override everything. It should precede everything. But for some people, national security comes somewhere in the last stage. It doesn't mean they portray us as a people who do not give any importance to human rights. It's a universal right. Human right is a universal right. It is a fundamental right. There's no compromise on that. But we must see that society exists peacefully. But if there's no peace, where is the question of human rights? So much of, in the name of human rights, people try to create controversies. And I don't get into these controversies, but sometimes it affects the morale of our security forces. Since I'm not an expert on the subject, but since I also deal closely with the matter, sometimes I take my position very strongly. And as a member in the Council of Ministers, my viewpoint must be very categorical and very clear. I'll share this small incident on the National Human Rights Day, the World Human Rights Day. The Chief Justice of India and the entire judges of the Supreme Court including some of the former Chief Justice of India, were there, where I was present there as a representative from the government. And I was very candid. Some of our security forces, they were combating the terrorists some 10, 15 years back. And today, the kind of harassment they are getting, somebody files petition in the names of human rights, some may genuinely have issues about not following the standard procedure of operation. There could be issues. We don't deny that. But the thing is, we should not do anything which kills the morale of our forces. That is very important for me. The morale of our security forces must be protected. We have internal mechanism within our forces, whether in armed forces, in central armed forces, appropriately, these are, well taken care of. Our system is very robust, and we believe in our system. So I was, while speaking in that particular forum, I was mentioning that please don't forget that I am a minister dealing with security, but I am also the minister in charge of human rights. Human rights come under Home Ministry. So our responsibility is equally shared. We are very, very clear about protection of human rights. As I said, it's a universal right. It cannot be compromised with. But as a nation, we aspire to be a powerful nation. And to be a powerful nation is not to dominate anybody, but to establish our position. India as a nation always has been propounding the thoughts, anything which will create peaceful atmosphere in the world. It's not a question of a soft power or hard power. India and India's ethos are well known to the world. So, as I said in the beginning, there are various things I could share about what we are doing. I have lots of reports in my hand, but I think most of you know it. What are the steps being taken by the government, how serious our government is to deal with the menace of terrorism. Many of you have retired from the service. Many of you are serving. Many of you are experts in the domain knowledge you have. Many of you have written numbers of columns, pieces, books. So, in our Indian saying, आपका सामने में अगर मैं बहुत ज़्यादा बोलूँगा तो कोई मतलब नहीं है क्योंकि ये सूरज के सामने में दिया जलाने वाली बात होगा. It will be lighting a candle in the broad daylight when there's a sunshine. So I will not deal about the concept, how to deal details, but I'm just sharing with you all that I personally believe in last 4 years, we have come a long way. I have personally seen how our intelligence sharing mechanism has improved from the central level to the subsidiary level in the state. Our multi-agency centers are working very well. I'm very satisfied the way in which it is being functioning. There may be political differences between the state government and central government because of different political parties, but when it comes to security, there are no differences. Agencies are working absolutely smoothly at their own levels, appropriate levels. So for that, I must congratulate our officers. They're doing a good job. At the same time, it is very difficult to claim anything these days. The world is moving at a very fast pace. So as a minister, I have to be very careful. If I claim that there is no bomb blast in the major cities of India in the last 4 years, I don't want to make such kind of claims. Because, as I said, we live in a very, very risky world. But I must compliment our old agencies at different level. We've done an incredible job. We have seen, that's why I said, it is something that you can feel happy about, but one incident can demolish the entire claims. So it is very risky business. We have indeed some kind of unfortunate incidents, some tragic incidents in border areas, in central India. These are there. At the same time, we must not forget that India, such a huge country, with a porous border, such kind of a different dimensional kind of problem we face, but India is considered one of the safest countries on this planet. Some of the areas are vulnerable. Our cities are safe, but there are certain vulnerable areas. We realize that. And we need to plug all those holes, fill the gaps, and these are being done. There are certain things which, when I talk to some of my counterparts from the Western world, they are amazed that the Islamic terrorism, which is being seen in Middle East and in many parts of the world, has no profound effect in India. This is because the nature in which we have established our society and our government, it has a very important role to play. When they learn that we have about 180 million Muslim population, then I say, don't use this word that you have 180 million Muslims. Despite that, don't use this word. You will be undermining our Muslim community in India. It is not despite or in spite of. This is the nature of Indian society, whether Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Isai, anybody in India. The nature of Indian society is different, and this is our success story. That is why when we talk about ISIS, the numbers of Indians or Indian origins undergoing training there or remaining in their influence are countable. Most of you know the figures. So these are some of the success stories which we proudly share with our counterparts. Whereas in some of the countries where we expect the problem should be lesser, there it's compounding. And they are grappling with the situation there, especially in the Western countries. But as I mentioned in the beginning, some of the Islamic nations taking the lead role in combating this, especially the Islamic terrorism, which we discussed about at length, very encouraging. But the whole globe needs to come together. Every country needs to come together. Even one country or one region can spoil the global efforts. We come together, but something emanates from one pocket, and it really demolishes the efforts being made over the years. That is why when we talk about stopping the cross-border terrorism, terror funding, all these issues, these are all cross-border issues. And India, the problem, homegrown problem, is almost negligible. I can say this, the homegrown problem in India is almost negligible. The problems are thrust on us. On the day of that night, November 8th, when Prime Minister announced demonetization of the high denomination notes, same night itself, imagine in the various borders of India, in some of the vulnerable areas, the fake currency, which were ready to come, were rendered useless because of one announcement. And this is no mean a small thing to combat terrorism. Many people will relate it to corruption or many other things. But from fighting against terrorism point of view, this is a big blow to the terror organizations. And imagine the kind of effort they must have done after that to regroup or re-strategize, whether from the Myanmar side, from Nepal side, Bhutan side, Bangladesh, or Pakistan, or the coastal. But since then, I must mention here, as a minister looking after the border management, we have been able to manage and man India's long, porous border effectively. We have nearly 16,000 length land boundary. We have around 7,500 long coastal boundary. We have emphasized both front effectively, and so many things have taken place. And the state governments are being empowered. And you know very well, law and order is a state subject, but anything which is considered a terror activities or which concerns national security, then it is a joint responsibility of the state and the central government. We have empowered, we have strengthened the state agencies, state bodies, various organizations. So today we can say that India's border is very safe. And about the border fencing, you all know we are doing this technological solution to create our border very, very safe and secured. Because human being has limitation. We cannot man the border physically in any form. It's not possible. So we have to use the technology which is available. And it's good that our border security forces, they are taking care of this thing. And I'm very happy to inform that within this year, we should be almost finishing with our effort to fix the border fencing along with the technological solution. I have personally seen it. Our Prime Minister has been briefed about. Our Home Minister himself has been dealing with the subject closely. So we are securing our border. There is a separate way of doing it in the coastal region and different way of doing it in the land border. And India's land boundary is very complicated, you all know. From the vast open desert to the high mountain snow-capped to all those riverines and a deep forest in northeast, it's not easy. That is why when I go to the border area, I make sure that I keep the morale of our forces high. And for your information, I'm not saying that I have done something great, but as a part of duty, I have visited almost more than 90% of our BOPs. And some of the BOPs where ministers have not visited in last 70 years. I have seen the tears rolling down from the eyes of some of our border security personnel when they see the minister staying with them, coming to them, talking to them, eating food with them. It's a big thing for them because they feel at times that the people in the country, people who sit in South Block, North Block, do not know how they are living, how they are spending their time for the country. So these are certain things which we have seen. We get inspiration from our Prime Minister. When our Prime Minister spends Diwali moment with our forces, when our Prime Minister gives personal hearing to the people living in a far remote corner of our border areas, it galvanizes the morale of our forces. And that is the inspiration we draw from our leader. And I feel very proud to have a team. At the same time, when government is committed, our citizens need to be involved closely. That is where I see the India Foundation managing to gather so many right-thinking people in one platform. So I must compliment India Foundation for taking up this great challenge for the national cause. Our Raksha Mantri ji has also come. Please come here. You have been announced. So when our lady Mahila Raksha Mantri has come, I better do not take much time. I will give space to Ram Madhav ji and Nirmala ji, but I will just end my thoughts by mentioning the points which I said in the very beginning. The enemy of humanity is terrorism. There is no scope for debate. If we debate on the definition of terrorism itself, then believe me, we cannot win this war against terror. If we have to win the war against terrorism, we have to forego the debate. And we must come down heavily on any country, region, or anybody, organization, whoever directly or indirectly tries to differentiate between the terrorist organizations. It is the moral obligation on the part of every country to come together and stop the debate on terrorism, but to act together against terrorism. I'm very clear on that, and I believe that this kind of gathering will make our efforts much more precise how to tackle the menace of terrorism. I don't want to take time from there on, and as a person who has great friendship with the people working in India Foundation, I will always be there to work with India Foundation. I will always be there to work with anybody who are working for the security of the country, who are concerned for the security of our nation, of the world. I will always be available. There will be no compromise on my thinking, on my approach. We are one. With that thought, I have come to you to show my solidarity, thanking all of you for hearing me out. I thank Ram Madhav ji, I thank the India Foundation, all the members for inviting me. I thought this year I would not be able to come, but I'm very lucky that I could come and meet you all and spend some time with you. Thank you so much, and my best wishes for all our future endeavor. Thank you. Jai Hind.